the first basic purpose of the research design is to arrive at an objective, accurate, valid and economic solution to the problem. Control the effects of the potentially relevant independent variables on the behavior of the research subjects. When we are doing the experiments, so there may be a lot of trial and error which is going on, and because of which, so it may reduce the reliability and validity of the results. Hello everyone, I am Purnima, faculty in the Department of Commerce and Management, Vidhyaashram First Grade College, Temple of Excellence, MYSURU. I welcome you all to this session. In this Unit 2, Session 2, we will be having some more discussions on the research design. Now, let us look into the basic purpose of research design. From what has been stated above, we derive two basic purposes. Now, what is the purpose of the research design? We have two basic purposes. First one is to provide answers to the research questions. So, what are the answers you have to give for the research questions? Second one is to control the variance. So, these research purposes are achieved by the researcher himself and not by the research design. So, the basic purposes of research design is, first one is to provide answers to the research problem. Second one is to control the variance. Then, as regards the first purpose, a research is designed to enable the researcher to arrive at an objective, accurate, valid and economic solution of the given problem to the maximum possible extent. So, the first basic purpose of the research design is to arrive at an objective, accurate, valid and economic solution to the problem. So, whatever is the solution he is trying to find through his research for any of the research problems, so the problem should be objective, accurate, economic and valid. Only then that can be a good research design. Then, since scientific research begins with a provision supposition in the form of a hypothesis, the major purpose of the design is to provide the research with a valid test of the hypothesis on the basis of empirical evidence obtained by the researcher by utilizing the least amount of money, manpower, time and maximum possibility of its being approved by other investigators engaged in the given area of investigation. Now, in case of scientific research, so we all know that lot of experiments, lot of research is going on in the field of science and technology. So, in the field of science, we have lot of research which are going on, and this begins with the provisional supposition in the form of a hypothesis. Now, what is the meaning of hypothesis? So, hypothesis means it is the educated guess. So, what is an educated guess? The researcher may feel that the outcome of the research will be this. So, he can just predict what can be the outcome. He is just guessing what will be the outcome of his research. So, that guessing work, whatever he does in the form of a statement, that we call it as the hypothesis. Now, the major purpose of the design is to provide the research with a valid test of the hypothesis. Now, whatever is the hypothesis, so whatever is the statement he is doing. So, suppose he says that the diabetic capital of the world is India. So, what does that mean? So, this is a hypothesis. So, it means that India will be a population full of diabetic patients. So, that will be the statement which is called as the hypothesis, and he has to prove whether the statement is true or false by giving certain proof for that statement. So, he has to provide certain proof. So, what are the theories which he is giving to say that India is the diabetic capital of the world? So, how does he prove that, and what are the methods he is using to prove? So, that becomes a part of the hypothesis. So, valid test of the hypothesis on the basis of empirical evidence. So, empirical evidence means whatever is the proof he is giving. So, to prove the hypothesis, so the proof he is giving by utilizing the least amount of money. So, he has to make use of the least amount of money, manpower, time and maximum possibility of it being approved by other investigators. So he has to use the time, very least amount of time, least amount of money, and also maximum possibility. So he should try to see that this hypothesis which he has made, it has to be proved for true, and it has to be approved by all the other investigators who are engaged in that field of research. So this will be the basic purpose of the research design. Next, the second purpose of research is to control the effects of the potentially relevant independent variables on the behavior of the research subjects. So, he has to see that he can control the effect of the relevant variables on the subject. So, whatever are the variables, so why does diabetes occur in most of the Indians? Is it because they eat more sweets, or is it because of the food habits, or is it due to any deficiency in the food they are consuming, or it is because of the climate we are having? So there are various factors which contribute for the disease in the Indians. So the researcher has to see what are the various variables because of which this disease is more rampant in India. So it merely facilitates the process of obtaining answer to the relevant questions in the research study and enables the investigator to exercise control over experimental, extraneous and error variances pertaining to the particular research problem being studied. So the researcher, the process of obtaining the answer to the relevant questions. So how can he collect information relating to the subject? So he has to go and visit all the people. He has to consult all the doctors who will be the patients. He has to visit each of the patients personally, and he has to collect the information regarding the cause of the disease, so that he can collect the maximum information, so that he can exercise control over the experimental, external and error variances. So whatever information he is collecting, it should be free from any of the variances pertaining to the particular research problem being studied. Next, let us have a look at the characteristic features of a good research design. So, designing a research, particularly in the field of social sciences, is very complex, as the selection of a method or methods of logic and planning of the design was not always guarantee sound results. So, whenever the characteristic features of a good research design, it involves, especially in the field of sciences, social sciences, it should be logic and it should be planned. Then next, in this, the first feature is objectivity. Now what do we mean by objectivity? The findings are said to be objective when they pertain to the method of data collection and scoring of the responses. So when this kind of a research where they pertain to the method of data collection. So what is the kind of a data collection you are resorting to? Whether it is the primary data or whether it is like secondary data, and how you are scoring the responses. Then the objectivity in respect of the procedure may be judged by the degree of agreement between the final scores assigned to various persons by more than one independent observer. So in this objectivity, we should also make a note of how the final scores will be given. So whatever the information have been collected, so that information has to be in numerical terms, and how each information is being scored, or what is the number given to each information. So that depends on the independent observer. The more agreement among the observers, the more objective are the observation, recording and evaluation of the responses. So whenever we are collecting lot of information from the primary source, so we need lot of observers, and if the observers are in agreement with one another, then we can have a better data collection. So there should be agreement among the observers relating to the observation, the recording and evaluation of the responses. Good research design should permit fairly objective measuring instruments in which every observer visualizing a performance comes to the same conclusion. So, we should use such instruments wherein all the observers they come to the same conclusion. Next, reliability. The question of reliability of knowledge is usually raised when the presence of a problem arouses in the knower a demand not only for something more than mere conjecture, but for something for which it shall be useful in a given situation and perhaps in similar situations. So, reliability means, so this knowledge, whatever you are gaining from the research, whatever you are doing, so that knowledge should be of a use to the people. So, whenever the people demand a solution for a particular problem, so the research should be able to provide solution to the problems as such. So, whatever may be purpose of the research should be able to find answers to the particular problem which are confronted by the people, and such a solution should be utilized for such situation always. And reliable knowledge means any claim that is substantiated as trustworthy for a given purpose. So, reliability means the same thing should be applicable in that similar situation always. So, whenever the people are confronted with such a situation, they should be able to make use of that solution. So, that kind of a solution which we derive from the research, so that we call it as the reliable solution, or that we call it as reliability. Then next one is, the next important characteristic of the research design is validity in experimentation. So, in scientific research design and experimentation, validity refers to whether a study can scientifically answer the questions it intends to solve. So, what is the meaning of the word validity? Validity means it should see that whatever the solution it is giving. So, validity refers to whether a study can scientifically answer the questions. So, whether the problems, whether the solution, whether the scientific questions which have been raised, so the research can provide answers to such questions. So, such we call it as the validity. So, the validity of an experimental result is the degree to which it measures what it is supposed to measure. So, validity means it is the degree to which it measures what it is supposed to measure. So, validity means we should understand that it is always based on proof, and whatever is the proof which is being offered, it should provide the same proof in all cases. So, this is not the same as reliability, which is the extent to which the measurement gives consistent results. Within validity, the measurement does not always have to be similar as it does in reliability. So, we should understand the difference between reliability and validity. So, reliability means we can rely on the solution always in any similar situation. We can rely on the same solution, whereas validity means it is the measurement need not always be the same, but then it can be always valid solution. Then next one, validity in experimentation. So, even when an experiment is performed employing an ideal design, it may encounter various types of errors that may reduce the reliability and validity of the experimental designs. So, when we are doing the experiments, so there may be a lot of trial and error which is going on, and because of which, so it may reduce the reliability and validity of the results. The two major types of experimental validity are internal validity and external validity. Now, if we can see here, there are two types of validity. One is the internal validity, other one is the external validity. Now, what is this internal validity? It refers to whether the experimental treatment was the sole cause of observed changes in the dependent variable. So, we all know that a problem has arisen because of the various variables which have affected that particular situation, because of which the problem has come. Now, in this internal validity, it refers to whether the experimental treatment was the sole cause of the observed changes in the dependent variable. So, what are the changes in the dependent variable? So, that relates to internal validity. It addresses the true causes of outcomes that we observe in the study. So, what is the outcome we have observed? So, that becomes the internal validity. Strong internal validity means we have not only reliable measures of our independent and dependent variables, but also strong justification that causally links our independent variables to our dependent variables. So, here we should understand that what is internal validity and what is strong internal validity. So, strong internal validity means it links the dependent variables with the independent variables. So, strong internal validity refers to that casually links our independent variables to the dependent variables. So, it refers to the unambiguous assignment of causes to effects. So, what is the cause? What is the effect? So, in a good experimental technique in which the effect of independent variable on a dependent variable is studied under highly controlled conditions, usually allow for higher degrees of internal validity than, for example, single case designs. So, whenever we are engaging in a good experimental technique, we should see that there is proper, we should consider what is the internal validity, and then we should go ahead with the solution. Then next is external validity. It is the extent to which you can generalize the findings of a study to other situations, people, settings and measures. So, external validity means how you can apply the research or the findings to other settings, to other people and other measures. In other words, can you apply the findings of the research to a broader context? So, the same findings whatever we have got from the research, can you apply that findings to in a broader context? So, the aim of scientific research is to produce generalizable knowledge about the real world. So, in scientific research, we are curious to know more about the surroundings all around us. So, we are curious to know what is in the ocean bed. We are curious to know what is in the universe as such, what is outside the universe. So, we are curious to know about the things all around us. So, it comprises a major part of scientific research. So, without high external validity, you cannot apply results from the laboratory to other people or the real world. So, whenever you are coming up with a research problem and a solution to the problem, so such solutions should be applicable to all the surroundings all around us. So, in qualitative studies, external validity is referred to as transferability. So, you can always transfer the solution to other same situations. So, that is what we mean by external validity. Then types of external validity. There are two main types of external validity. One is the population validity. Second one is the ecological validity. Now, what is this population validity? It refers to whether you can reasonably generalize the findings from your sample to a larger group of the people. So, population validity means you can apply the same solution to the same group of people. So, whatever the findings you got from the sample, whether that solution can be just applied to groups of people. Then the second type of this, so the population validity depends on the choice of the population and on the extent to which the study sample mirrors that population. So whenever we are undertaking the research, so we have to see whether it has population validity. So in order to see that it has population validity, we have to just all depends on the choice of the population. From whom are you collecting the information? Who are your respondents, whom we call as the population, and the extent to which the study sample mirrors that population. So in case you have to just interview a large section of around 10 lakhs of people, so we cannot just personally collect all the information from 10 lakhs of people. So what do is we resort to sampling technique. From the sampling technique, we just interview 10,000 people or 1 lakh people. So they become the sample, and whatever the result we are getting from the sample, that should be applicable. That should be representation of the whole of the 10 lakh of population. So if the sample is correct and if the population is correct, then we can have population validity. Non-probability sampling methods are often used for convenience. So with this type of sampling, the generalizability of the results is limited to populations that share similar characteristics with the sample. So we have the various sampling techniques, the probability sampling techniques, non-probability sampling techniques. So this non-probability sampling techniques, if we are making use of it, so we will exactly know who the samples are and we will be collecting the information. So this kind of a result will be limited to the area of that population only. So we cannot generalize the solution derived. So when we just resort to non-probability sample collection. Next type of external validity is ecological validity. It refers to whether you can reasonably generalize the findings of a study to other situations and settings in the real world. So in the real world, that is the world around us, so this ecological validity, it will just see whether you can generalize the solution to the real world, that is the world all around us. With this, we come to the end of this session. Hope you have all followed. Thank you.